Hey, Dave.
What's going on?
Oh, just living the dream here.
Yeah, another Zoom meeting.
Yeah, no kidding, eh? It has been hasn't been as many today as on most days for me, but
Yeah.
I think people are over the Zoom hype maybe, and realizing that not everything has to be a meeting. It could be an email, maybe.
Yeah, and just being on a meeting is not necessarily working.
Yeah, make work projects in our area is massive at the moment, so.
Yeah, I'd prefer to just actually do work.
That's a novel idea.
Mm-hmm. Tell everyone what they got to do and go do it.
Yeah, I hear you.
How's it going, everyone?
Hey, how are you?
That's Jono.
Yeah, no one else can make it, so I'm making it for Mac today.
Cool.
Yeah, I've been told that you were given the gauntlet.
Yeah, I got Ben's giant paragraph here of what he wanted to say.
It's a lot more organized than the rest of us, I think, but minus Trevor, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
9-page PowerPoint might be coming your guys' way. So.
Yeah. I want to lecture us on something.
Yeah, exactly. It's all gold though, so that's good.
Oh yeah.
So John, where are you? Are you in Hamilton or do you live elsewhere?
No, my wife and I live in Hamilton.
Nice. Have you guys always lived there? Or you just lived there with school in McMaster?
No, we moved here 2015. So we were like, I was kind of all over before. I was in Belleville. That's where I'm from, and she's from Sudbury. So.
From Belleville.
Yeah.
I've been to their one bar. I think it's like the Red
Lion.
Yeah.
The rugby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It was quite the experience.
It's kind of a shithole.
It's definitely a shithole. Yeah, definitely a shithole. But I had a great time. I mean, from what I can remember, I had a great time. So you're from Belleville then?
Yeah, I'm from like Prince Edward County, but I always say Belleville because it's closest. So.
Oh, okay. Right on. So Hamilton's maybe just like not too far off from
Big city. I'm from
depends where. I guess depends where in Hamilton you live, but
yeah, it's not bad. We've adjusted.
Nice. Do you guys have all your parks shut down out there too?
Yeah, they just have. They don't have like it's just the park equipment is all taped off.
Oh, but the parks are still accessible as long as
you can still like go be around the park, but yeah. But they're starting to give out tickets and fines and all that if you're in a group and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what Chaps was saying last time, that I didn't realize it was so high, $1,000.
Yeah.
Right? It's crazy. Mal, I didn't see you on here before. Oh, it's been a long time since I've seen you.
I know, right?
I hear you're running the show in some respect somewhere. I forget where though, but someone did tell me that the other day.
I'm at Laurier, and then I'm also at Conestoga.
Laurier, right? You were doing I don't know, something there. I don't know who told me, but they started talking about this Mal girl, and I was like, yeah, cool. And then
Met her before.
I was like, I don't know who that is. And they're like, well, she used to play soccer. And I was like, get out of town.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, somebody got me into strength and conditioning back to Sheridan.
I'm not sure who that could have been. But
couldn't guess, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what are you doing at those two places?
Conestoga, I'm doing athletic therapy, and then strength and conditioning as well. And then at Laurier, I'm doing strength and conditioning.
And are those contracts, like 24 hours?
Yeah, so Laurier is more like an honorarium contract, which stinks. And then Conestoga is like I'm a part-time employee there.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yeah. So my the main thing at Conestoga is athletic therapy, and then strength and conditioning kind of just blew up with that. So there's 3 of us that are certified there now. So.
And who do you work with at Laurier? What sports are you working with there?
I got 12. I get super overwhelming.
You
yeah.
as a part-timer of 10 hours or so have 12 teams. Yeah,
it's awful.
That's outrageous.
So I have a lot of interns that help me out. But I'm trying to get one more person on with me next year to help me out. Because I do Laurier in the mornings, and then I go to Conestoga, and I work at Conestoga in the afternoon, evenings.
So hold on. Laurier has no other S&C there?
They have 2. So they have Jesse Collins working with football. And then they also have Vinny working with 3 sports. And then men's rugby is kind of like up in the air. It's not ideal, but
Wow, that's
yeah,
crazy.
We can chat about that another day.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But you know how I feel about Laurier. Bleed purple and gold, right?
Yeah, I think there's a remove button on here. I think I'm still the host, so I can work, right?
Yeah, see you later.
Yeah. I mean, true story. So obviously, not obviously, but I went to Guelph, and I was in a meeting with women's hockey at York, and a debrief of our end of year with our entire team and our entire IST. And my husband is doing his PhD at Guelph, so obviously we have a lot of Guelph paraphernalia around our house. And I'm obviously not at Guelph, I'm at York, so I'm having this discussion with the women's hockey team, and you know, I happen to mention like Griffin pride instead of lion pride. And that obviously didn't go over well, because my husband was like walking around with a Griffin sweater on. Yeah, it was a disaster. It took me.
How dare you?
I know, like, and it was on Zoom, right? So I can see all their faces, and everyone's just like, "How dare you?" Like, you're
Griffin
not.
is part lion.
Right. I mean, I obviously tried to get out of it.
All
like,
good.
I tried to work my way out of that mess, but yeah, it was hit pretty hard. So.
That's fantastic. I always wear like, because I'm going from one place to another, so I'll have like a Laurier t-shirt underneath, like my Condor t-shirt while I get there, and they like see like the purple underneath. You're like, yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You guys got to hear what's going on in our house. My my youngest son is in kindergarten, Big Willie we call him, and his entire kindergarten class is doing the exact same thing we're doing right now. So the whole group is like all excited, saying hi to each other because they haven't seen each other in like a month. So it's pretty cute.
That's amazing.
I'm just gonna go down and check that out for a second. I'll be right back.
So I just got a message from Mac James saying that he thinks the link, he tried to get onto the link and it looks like it's dead. I don't know if that's the case, but if anyone else is having the issue, I just resent it out to everybody. Trev, you got your video working.
Yeah, it took a little effort, but now you can see all my beauty. I showered for you guys, just so you know.
Among one of my daily goals, try to get like 5 or 6 showers a week during this time, and surprisingly tough to achieve sometimes.
Does everyone have pants on?
Don't answer
Yes.
that. Don't answer that.
I make the staff stand up now. Make sure.
Hey, what's going on?
Figured it out, Mac.
Yeah, I had to like download it. I've done it from the browser before, but I had to load the application and everything.
I think every like 5 to 10 years we need a new pandemic just so that we can connect with coaches that we generally don't have the time to prioritize to do. So this is great.
You sit up over there, man. That's ridiculous.
My back hurts.
Working on spine mobility.
I mean, if you're working from home, that means you can go on workers' comp.
Who knows? We might have to soon.
That's an interesting concept there, Jordan. I wonder how that would work.
Well, yeah, I mean, the funny thing about this is I'm not sure what your institutions have done as far as like, do you have a home office? Do you have a computer? Do you like have a chair? All that kind of stuff. Yeah, right? Because it's like, yeah, you can work from home. Hear no evil, see no evil.
We had to fill out a whole bunch of forms and send a picture of our home office to our HR department and all this kind of stuff to get the clearance to still get paid while we're at home. So yeah, we had to do all that.
I get put on a watch list if I sent the picture of the office at work.
Yeah, we cleaned it up a bit for sure.
We didn't get asked for anything.
Got asked to work. Yesterday I was on one of these and someone said I had to do a webinar the other day, so I threw up this thing behind me. It's literally packing paper that's like taped together, and somebody was like, "And do you have a Dexter sheet hanging behind you?" Because they could see the top. It's like connected to the floor joists in the basement. Yeah.
And so what if you do? What are they going to do about it?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I never watched that show, but my understanding is that guy kept things pretty sharp. No one found out anything. So.
Mm-hmm. Just practicing social isolation. They come near me, I kill them. Yeah. In my little room.
Aggressive.
Hey. It's pretty bad. I was out on a football field yesterday with Ben sprinting at St. James High School. And sure enough, I was waiting for it. I was checking my watch. Sure enough, here comes some hillbilly from the houses next to the field screaming, "Get off the field! I'm calling the bylaw officers. You can't be there." Yeah, I know I can't, but you can just shut up too and go in your house. How about that? I think I'm not contributing to the
conversation went.
Nah, I was nice to him. I just waved and said, "Hi, have a nice day."
Go back to your home. You too good for your home?
Jeez, like I'm going, okay, I'll send my kid back home to the basement to play video games for the next 3 weeks. Is that better? Okay, that's what I'll do. Yeah, I'm not worried about the school. I know the principal there. I'm assuming on schools, I don't think the bylaw officers even have mandate to fine for that. That would have to be charged by the Wellington School Board. And then they'd have to call someone who would have to call someone. And then, but the ironic thing is there's an old lady walking her dog around the track. And then there's another woman playing with her kid on the track. So it was us that got it because we're on the grass.
You got a nice track there too, don't they, Trev?
Yeah, it's a good. Yeah, so U of G track guys are there. The last times I've been there, it's been U of G folks doing sprints. I've been kicked off U of G 3 times now, so I figured I've worn out my welcome there.
Yeah, we got a pretty stern message just in general about accessing the fields.
Yeah. And I tried pulling all the cards, do you know who I am, all that kind of thing. Didn't work. I slipped them a 20, didn't work. Hard asses.
Should have just said, Stu.
Oh, good point. Never thought. Shit, next time. And then Mike going, well, because we used to always go on the football field before they build up the big fence, right? And they're going, well, we can jump that fence easy. I said, I don't know, something about that makes it worse. Jumping a 6-foot fence to go, I don't know. They may not be as merciful compared to the open turf field. But I'm trying to film all my agility labs for the classes. And it's like 2-hour agility video we're doing. And we're out on this muddy field and they're trying to do cuts and pivot turns and it's a mess. So whatever. Makes for a good blooper reel. Anyway, Jordan, you running this thing? Who's in charge here?
Foley's got this one today.
Okay. I didn't know I was in charge of starting this up. In any case, thanks everybody for coming out. Some familiar faces for sure. Some the same from, I don't even know if that was last week, last month. I think it was both that we spoke last. It's crazy. I got an email from work today and they're like, hey, good job this week. And I'm like, today is what? In any case, we want to talk about when this is all over, which obviously we don't have an end date for it, what our return to training plans look like, and intentionally use that language, return to training, and then what we think we're going to do in each of our respective spaces as far as recommendations for sport coaches as well with their sport-specific training, and how we can blend those things together so that when our athletes are back and we know when they have to hopefully, number 1, train again, number 2, practice again, and number 3, compete again, we can lay out some recommendations on what we're all thinking from that perspective and start thinking beyond this whole thing instead of how many different ways can we do bodyweight workouts. So we were going to look at this in a few different areas. We'll start off with the collegiate area. I don't have the email open right now, but I believe that Sam was going to talk about a little bit of what she was doing and get into some residual training effects, and then some input from UBC and McMaster. Correct, Sam? Okay, let's do it.
Sure. That's the order we want to go in. So we sent out a couple videos or a couple links prior to this. I'm not sure if anyone got the opportunity to watch Stu and Trent's presentation, but some interesting things from that for sure in terms of talking about residual training effects. Most of the stuff was based on linear, non-contact, non-collision sports, which I don't work with any of those in the collegiate sector because we don't work with track and field or rowing or anything like that. So mine's going to be a little bit more of a discussion on considerations around those residual training effects, and then some additional considerations specifically with collegiate setting that maybe we hadn't thought about, but we're starting to have some specific discussions. Raven, go lie down. Go on. That's my dog. So one of the things that we're really trying to take into consideration or have an idea about is, I don't really think 6 to 8 weeks, and that was the parameter that we had given out, is really that long in terms of having too much inactivity if you had some sort of training capacity to begin with. And I think from the collegiate setting, we can all agree that the training capacity has a lot to do with whether people show up or not, which can be a significant issue in a collegiate setting if your attendance isn't very high. And for those that were full year sports, we were probably just finishing, for some of our teams that got to go or made it to playoffs, or any women's hockey teams that were at national championships when this whole thing went down. Any sort of large training capacity really didn't happen because we were focusing obviously on in practice or end of season training. For most sports, I would say, for us, I'd say we're pretty lucky. Most of our programs maintain a pretty high level of training throughout the entire year. And we don't really have that issue in terms of compliance. We don't work with as many sports as many other programs do, but every sport that we work with, our coaches come to the gym with them and they train with them, and attendance is mandatory. So it's not really an issue that we have to look at, but I think that would probably be a huge consideration that we have to think about, is what type of training were the athletes doing prior to inactivity, regardless of a variety of residual training effects that we're told in terms of what do you lose first? Max speed, then strength endurance, anaerobic endurance, max strength, and then aerobic endurance lasts the longest, right? So probably some of those considerations have to be taken in. And then the bigger thing that we're thinking about is, what about our contact versus collision sports? So football and rugby are probably the biggest ones that we have concerns about, that if we get back from this and then the season's not postponed, I mean, a collision sport versus a contact sport, I think there's got to be some additional considerations there in terms of probably just having that muscle mass potential loss in terms of those sports. So in getting back into it, and I don't have a pretty presentation like Trevor's going to show you, but we're probably going to think a little bit more in terms of reestablishing training tolerance and trying to put as much mass back on to be able to protect some of those areas, especially for football within our QBs and things like that. Obviously in our collegiate setting, we have a variety of training ages, not just biological, but training age in particular. And I know Jordan's going to talk a little bit more about maybe the adult or older adult, but we have wide ranges. So taking some of that into consideration, because the older and more experienced athletes will have longer residuals, which is great. And then probably the training stimulus that our athletes were able to maintain during this time. I mean, right now, again, we're lucky. Our buy-in is pretty good. So most of our programs are still consistently training on Zoom with us. And I really appreciated the discussion we had last time, because I think it was Colin from Queens that brought up an opportunity to kind of not do a whole lot because our athletes are pretty stressed as it is. And I definitely took that back to our coaches and thinking about that in terms of maybe we're making them do too much right now, but from a emotional standpoint, I think it's working really well for us anyways, keeping structure for our athletes. But that being said, with football in particular, like when we come back, if you're still doing something from 8 weeks from now, like we still train 5 days a week, 3 times a week on Zoom, like 1 max ISO, 1 failure to squats, push-up, and pulls in some way that they've been able to rig up, 1 top end speed, 1 Excel change direction, and then they're jumping roughly 300 to 400 reps a week. So I think when we come back, I'm not too concerned about any of that stuff, except for their ability to been able to keep some mass on to protect them in their sport. And then some further considerations that I'm interested in a discussion about is 8 weeks from now, or from when we talked about this last week, we're in the middle of the summer. So what is the compliance going to be if we can't actually have the athletes in the gym? And for all the athletes that we thought that were going to stay here, they're no longer going to because they have no summer jobs. So we're not really going to have any athletes on campus. So what's the compliance actually going to be no matter what program you put out? So is it more of a benefit just to do something that's engaging than nothing that keeps them engaged, instead of what I would like to do is obviously have them in the gym more than what was planned, just to kind of build up that tolerance again. But that might not be the reality if you don't have a good relationship with those athletes before you left. And then I would say the benefit of being at home is obviously food. Our biggest issue that we identified was that our fuel consumption is significantly low. So I'm pretty happy with our athletes getting so much food right now, which focusing on energy availability might be something that we want to focus a bit more on, given the fact that, I don't know about you guys, but our female athletes in football, the amount of mass they lose, especially in that first half of the season, is so high that, I mean, we could probably work on mitigating that primarily instead of anything else. And then the last thing is just, did they have any sort of capacity in any of those major areas, max speed, strength endurance, max strength, aerobic endurance, depending on whatever sport you're trying to accomplish, but did they even have anything to begin with? So if we got back in June, I would say the thing we would have focused on, if we're going to get into actual numbers, is reestablishing training tolerance as many times a week as possible in the gym. Our guys usually train 3 or 4 times a week in the gym anyways. So probably there, but then my goal, I think, would to keep them in the gym longer than what I usually would have done in the past, leading in July and August, in terms of number of times a week and the amount of volume that they're doing, just because we're really hemorrhaging a lot of the other areas right now in terms of max speed and jumping and a lot of those. So that's kind of some of the thoughts I have. And if anyone has any comments or thoughts on top of that, or things you'd also thought about.
Sam, I want to jump in here to carry on one of the things that you were talking about for contact and collision sports. Presentation, I forget where it was, by Jeremy Shepard, I saw a couple of years ago, talked about acute to chronic workload ratios of each training element. So right now I'm going to call out Joe McCullum from UBC, because Joe, in the only conversation I think I've ever had with you, talked a lot about how you worked with your players from a positional sense in football, and I know that you have some personal experience with that. And maybe this is what you were planning on talking about, maybe it wasn't. But can you talk about potentially a return to combat training or a return to physicality, and what are graded ways that we can have guys and girls do this alone in small groups and then in a group or a team setting so that they can be ready for that impact? Because while muscle mass and strength is important, a lot of it is just tolerance to impact now.
Yeah, thanks for having me, first of all, guys. And I'll just give you some context so you know what our shit show looks like. We have 25 teams, plus we work with the National Swim Center that's based out of UBC, so 26. Over 650 athletes. Amanda's on the call right now, and then Tavis, my other colleague, we kind of split the portfolio. So my portfolio specifically, I oversee everyone, but I'm football, men's rugby, which turns into rugby league in the summer. If you guys aren't familiar with it, it's a little different. Men's and women's rowing, cross country and track, and men's field hockey and men's basketball are my portfolio, and then the rest are kind of split from there. So I do a lot of the contact stuff, contact sports, and a big part for us is I'll speak on football and rugby mainly because I spend the most amount of time with those guys, and they actually are dialed in, like they don't miss sessions. Football trains 4 days a week in the gym year round, even in season. Rugby's 3 times, plus we do a little bit of a activation lift on game day when we're at home. So that makes it a little easier for us. We incorporate a ton of wrestling into what we're doing year round. And the big thing is we're not going to be back in June, I think. we just extended our date. They said we're suspending everything to May 30th, but the reality is we're not going to be getting back until probably July if we're lucky, depending on if things keep trending the way they are. So the way we're looking at it from a programming perspective right now for both rugby and football is I have them doing something 7 days a week, because our volume is so high throughout the year that I think we need to kind of keep it on. My thought is they're not going to probably do all the workouts that we're giving them, but I'm asking them to basically do, in that 7 days, we're doing 8 workouts. And one of the days is I just want them to get out and walk and get out of their houses kind of thing. Because we can't have any physical contact, we're not putting any of the pummeling or wrestling drills that we do. But I have a lot of tumbling and stuff like that still in their program. And we do that year round as well with those guys. But I do a ton of like bridging and neck and crawling work in their warm-ups and their extensive work throughout just to prep them for it. I think what we all have to wrap our heads around isn't so much about what we're doing program-wise. It's so much about the reality is this is going to be 1980s hockey and football. Like camp gets you in shape. It's never ideal. This is what it's going to boil down to. And if you're lucky enough to have a sport coach that kind of gets it, you're going to be way better off than anyone else. So if your football coach is a meathead and believes in crushing the shit out of his players in camp, you're going to be doing triage your entire season. If they work with you on your load monitoring and ask questions around how they should structure practice and they're open to it, you're going to do better than everybody else. I can have those conversations with my rugby and football coaches where a conversation like this with, say, men's basketball, it's a waste of my time. So it's very context and very sport specific when it comes down to it. Ultimately, in terms of the wrestling piece, that'll be the last piece I'm going to be able to get back into it. But for example, unlike Ontario, like our rugby season started in August. We went to the World Cup in Japan, and like we would still be playing until May if this hadn't broke. Then the guys would get 2 weeks off, and there's a cohort that go into sevens, and then there's a cohort that play league. And if you guys are familiar with rugby league, it's kind of like linebackers. You just smash the shit out of people, and it's wrestling. So I have a wrestling background myself as a coach and as an athlete, and I've worked with national wrestlers for years back in the day, and we layered a lot of that into what we were doing, and it was amazing how much that actually got our guys ready to transition from union to league. So again, it's going to be a hard thing, as Sam mentioned, is how do we inoculate them for the stress of contact? And to be honest with you, I don't know that we can. And I think if the seasons don't get delayed and we're able to start in late August, it's just going to be management. So our job is going to have to be more than ever is telling coaches who still think it's okay to do Okie drills in the parking lot that this might not be a good idea. So if you have open-minded coaches, these types of meetings should be with your coaches as well. And we're lucky enough to be doing that right now. So we're already planning okay, if we're able to get back in June, here's what we're doing. If we're able to get back in July, here's what we're doing. If we're starting in August, here's what we're doing. So we're trying to get those things going now. So this is a shit show for everyone, and that's the one beauty of it, guys, is we're all in the same boat here. So no one's gonna have a leg up here. As Trevor was saying, I was on the field with one of my pro guys this morning at 6 a.m. and there were still 30, 40 people running around the track. So it's gonna be a while. So I thought I could skirt some things just because he's got some return to play stuff we had to work on. But his season might not even go. So if you guys have any questions on how that 7 days looks, or if you want me to just keep talking, I can kind of give you a rough outline of it.
Give us a quick overview, a quick three-minute executive overview of your 7 days, Joe.
Sure. We basically have like, I have them sprint in an AM session, pretty low volume right now. So we kind of got stuck right after we do our spring camp a little differently. So we don't just do it for a month long. We do it like, we do one Wednesday morning starting in January every week just to get them on field and inoculate them back to sprinting again. And then we start to go 2 practices in the evening, one's half pads, one's full pads. Then we do 3 and then 4, and then we're kind of done. So we never even got through all that. So low volume sprinting right now, no conditioning. I'm just trying to stay within the guidelines. Then they go and do a lower body lift that evening. The next day is an upper body lift. And then the next day is like tempo work with some extensive jumps. And then the next day is like their outdoor nature walk or some steady state stuff. Just for recovery, we'll throw in a yoga session. Like I've done some Zoom recovery sessions with them, and then they'll kind of repeat that cycle again. So I'm just trying to get them doing something every day and try to keep them engaged. Like these kids are cooked. Like it's you need a 93% to get into kinesiology at UBC. You know, like we can't get the one beauty of it is we don't have any shit stains because they can't get into school. So like they're all really good kids. But they're tired. Like our rugby kids, I'm not even pushing them right now. I'm telling them like, here's a program. You know, and then next week we'll start to get after it a little bit, like ask them to do more. But the reality is like the academic rigors that we have to deal with and the layout of our university is so big that it's just, there's a lot on their plate as is. And this is kind of a welcome break, to be honest with you, for a lot of the kids. So, yeah, so I mean, we're basically just waving in and out a sprint, lower body, upper body kind of tempo or extensive work, recovery and repeat, and just keep that cycle going. And then I'm just working with the kids, and I'm working with some of our local vendors about getting equipment. But I don't know if you guys have seen that half these guys are sold out of everything. So I'm working with one of my hockey goalies in the NHL right now to build this gym in Edmonton, and they have no squat racks left. Like we've gone through 3 different companies. So like I'm just working with them like, hey, can we get some kettlebells or some power blocks even? And everybody's got a waiting list. So we're trying to encourage our kids to buy some stuff and invest in it because you can't buy a gym membership right now. And that's what they do otherwise. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. I believe in the email shout out someone from McMaster, and the only one that I'm aware of that I see is John, unless there's somebody else working there now, or if John got canned and is just wearing the gear.
Yeah. Yeah, so I got Ben's big like 2-paragraph list here that he wanted me to go through.
Ben's not here. You can do
so
what you
we
want.
deal with, yeah.
I'm texting
just so everyone
Ben right
kind of
now.
knows what he's in another meeting to figure out if we still have jobs. So he's pretty important to be in that one right now. But we deal with roughly 400 athletes. Right now we're doing like attendance, and how we're tracking everything is based off of team builder and completion percentage. We are also doing something called Marauder Challenge, which is just getting athletes to compete in different challenges and then post it to Instagram to try to keep that team environment as best we can. Use leaderboards through Team Builder and all that just to try to keep the competition going as best we can in this decentralized model, which some teams buy into it great. Mostly all our female teams, women's basketball, women's rugby have been killing it. Football is like, I think 5 people have filled out anything for it because they don't really care about it. So it's just trying to meet those needs for each team and what they need. How we were planning on going about it when we actually returned back was just trying to condense our 3-month or 4-month summer cycle. If it's into 2 months, we have 2 months to get ready, is trying to condense it into that. Start with 2 days in the gym and then just slowly build the tolerance back up, working through everything. Right now, most of our teams are doing 5 to 6 days a week, usually with 3 field sessions. Depending on the team, depends on what they're working on, top end speed, change of direction, and all that. I only deal with football and rugby, so I can only really say what my teams are doing. I know that a lot of our court sports and wrestling and all that were kind of crushed because nationals and all that pulled month of them, and the athletes were they were either there or hoping that they were going to be there, and then that pulled out. So now it's kind of been a goal for them, giving them that rest, and just letting them get their mind around school and everything like that. This past week, myself personally, I reached out to all my athletes and figured out if they want to do Zoom meetings like York is doing in terms of workouts and all that. Football was actually all for it because they kind of want that structured. They want something structured in their life right now, because right now they're going to bed at 3 a.m, playing COD most of the day, trying to figure out when they're going to do school. School's still up in the air. So it's just trying to get some consistency for all our athletes right now, and structure differently for each team.
Wicked. Thanks, John and Joe and Sam, for sharing that from the collegiate setting. Is there anybody else from the collegiate setting that wanted to share, or maybe provide an anecdote about no one last week, like I said, I think it was last week, talked much about yet of anyone out there that's leaving people alone, saying, hey, good to go. We're not going to be back for a long time. And when we do figure out that we're going to be back, we'll re-engage. Is that happening anywhere, or has there been pressure from athletes, coaches, or administration for that type of an approach?
We work with track at U of T. It's kind of a new partnership right now with S&C. So kind of a weird mix. When things just started, the track coaches just wanted them prescribing their activities, but as the tracks got shut down, Central Tech shut down, and there's kind of fewer spots to kind of go out, they've now kind of leaned on us a little bit more to provide more indoor stuff. It was one of the conversations we had early on as to how much to push right off the bat. I know we're getting into exams next week. So looking back on it now, I'm glad we kind of pushed to get guys into a rhythm and the girls into a rhythm now. So when they go into exams, they've got some structure. But while I was sitting in on a Athletics Ontario meeting for track, and a lot of the stuff they're trying to reassure everyone with is that you don't have to prescribe exercise. I think their idea is to provide suggestions without it being, it's kind of like that idea, you know, your coach says, all right, last sprint's optional. Is it really optional? Probably not. So they're trying to figure out a way to give people options of stuff to do without prescribing it. We're more or less prescribing it. But I think track's the last group that's kind of in that middle ground of, okay, if they're going to do stuff, great. If not, we're not super worried about it.
And I think that's an example of one of the opportunities that this presents for strength and conditioning coaches. In order for us to essentially get and keep jobs and be successful, whatever that means or looks like where you are, we need to be that chameleon, right? Like adjusting to a bunch of different sports, different teams, different coaches, different administrators, and trying to do what's best for the athlete within a structured system at most times. So now it's a really good opportunity for us to show the diverse skill sets that we have in being able to help people when it's different than just show up at 4 o'clock and I'll train you. So I think that's an example of that, Alex. And that's something that in my organization right now, we have a multidisciplinary team, and some of the sectors of that team are struggling when we don't have a day-to-day structure. Whereas our S&C section is like, oh man, we're good. We have a lot of things that can be done that will help us in the future, and just let us run with those things.
Jordan, can I pipe in for a sec?
Absolutely, man.
Hey, how are you guys dealing with, like, we're still working like 10 or 12 hour days trying to prep stuff as S&C tends to do. But I think that's a really important point for all of us as professionals, because I don't know what is going to happen with the small schools, but I mean, I imagine there's talk like, what if we have to forego our seasons? I think we all our funding is reliant heavily on the student base paying their tuition and their athletics and recreation fees and other things. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be a worrywart here, but I think if there's ever a time to show your validity in a role, we're the ones that are going to be able to keep the athletes healthy, even if their season doesn't go. The sport coaches don't necessarily have those skill sets. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. If anyone's thinking that far ahead, it may just be me overthinking things, but I think now is a really good time to work back from worst case scenario to best case scenario and really show your worth to your administration.
I think it's a huge piece. You know, it's like we're either going to show during this time whether we can sink or swim. We've been working so hard for so many years to create positions, create full-time positions. And, you know, now is, like you said, both you guys said, it's now's the opportunity to show our true value. But then on the flip side of that, if you don't, I think there's risk within, you know, departments or even within our field, particularly in Canada where our staffs are a bit leaner, that, you know, if admin doesn't see the value in what we're doing, and I think it goes to speak to us being able to share up the chain the things that we are doing, and then making sure that our admins are aware of the impact of student athletes, to advocate for the things that we're doing for them, whether it's the programming piece or the nutrition piece, education, however each school is doing it, but sharing those successes up the chain so that, you know, our admins are valuing the things that are happening.
I don't work in the collegiate setting anymore, and I knew that Josh would jump in on that, but it really highlights a time where anything that you're doing that can double down, you can probably provide to your greater setting. So even to the student bodies, are you doing up exercise videos that can then be pushed to, like at Guelph, the example, it's called Student Life, can be pushed to Student Life, and they can push it out to all the students, or any of these high performance resources that we're using in a multidisciplinary team or interdisciplinary team. Can we push out some of those education pieces? And honestly, all it takes is the right person to see it up along, and they see you as an asset to your university or to your overall organization, instead of, you know, 3 teams. And it's not any extra work. Next, we're gonna
Jordan, can I pop in on that real quick?
Yeah, buddy.
I just how's it going, everybody? I just had a conversation today with some of our staff, or like some of the department staff and whatnot. And basically one thing they're trying to do is to try to, like, in this time, obviously we're thinking strength and conditioning, but they're thinking the athletic footprint on campus and the athletic involvement on campus. So, like, obviously our rec department oversees the personal training staff and whatnot. They're doing fitness tips throughout the day and doing lunchtime workouts and stuff like that too. But this is something that Josh has always talked about, and even Steve have talked about, is trying to get your staff on, like the other people in the athletic department, on Team Builder or on your fitness programs and so on and so forth. So we've now reached out and started doing that during this time to try to be a positive light through the whole thing. So at least within the A&R department, they're feeling like there's some engagement there, right? And then secondly, across the entire student body, plus including the staff as well, and the community of Queens here for sure, is we're looking at providing like Humber did a great job of it, where they released their 2-week program there online for everybody to follow. And we're looking at kind of sending something out to the whole university on behalf of Queens Athletics to be like, hey, here's stuff you can do at home, and so on and so forth, and finding ways to engage people at home. Because at the end of the day, we need to make sure that athletics is always tries to be a bright spot on campus, where there's a lot of vibrant, there's a lot of engagement, there's a lot of young people involved, but the community's involved, and the local Gales are involved, and all this and so on and so forth. And I think this is one of those times that we got to try to find creative ways that might be a little bit more work, like Joe was saying, where we're spending all these hours, even though you're technically at home doing all this, but to try to find a way to be a positive influence in the communities you work in. Because when all is said and done, nobody's going to be asking about what your athlete's 1-rep max squats are when they're fighting for your job, right? So.
Thanks, Colin. We've actually, and this might transfer over to the university setting, myself and another colleague, essentially where I work now, somebody called it occupational athletes the other day, which is probably a good description of it. It's within a military population. We have a high performance sector and then a fitness sector, essentially. So myself and another colleague have been involved with an ongoing project that is self-serving to our unit. But in this time, what we've done is reached out to those fitness instructors as well and offered up some PD to them. And that might be an additional way that you can value within an athletic department have time, put a staff member on that. Is there any lecture or any, jump on a Zoom talk with all the personal trainers or fitness instructors within your organization and talk about how you work with athletes or something like that. And I think sometimes as we get further on in our careers, we forget about, a lot of us started in those settings working with general pop, and how valuable 30 to 60 minutes with someone that's on this call right now might be for someone that's working with that general student population and adult population during this time, and it might give them the motivation to continue their career. Right now, I got a couple thumbs up there. Right now, we're going to shift into return to training for weightlifting and high school football players, I think. Coach Dad Trev has a screen share I think he's going to offer up for this. I don't see him anymore. There he is. Are you ready to go on this, Trev?
Sure, I can do that. Let me see if the screen here. We got Sam, can you enable me?
Trev, that chair looks pretty comfy, bud.
Oh, all day, man. This computer for 4 hours talking to people. I tried it from the other office, and that's just not as comfortable. All right, I'm still disabled here. Help me out there, Sammy. There we go.
You good now?
Yep. You seen it? You guys seeing it?
Yeah, you're all good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, some operation is a little bit different. Yeah, last week I was mentioning to some of my approaches, so I just want to show you the demonstration of what I'm going at. Again, as I stated last week, some of the assumptions I'm going on based off just purely total experiences. My athletes just here for a summer holiday or whatever. It takes about 2 workouts for each week they met. So if we're for 8 weeks, that'd be 16 workouts, which at 3 to 4 workouts a week, so about 4 weeks you can get them back. So I work a lot with Olympic weightlifting athletes. So it's just a nice, clean model for you to look from the strength and power perspective. Approach you can take and just remove all the field work, all that metabolic stuff, ability work and speed work. Just focus what is the power component and the strength component and how to get that back. And kind of meant this interesting in a slide so that you can kind of get an idea of one possibility. It's not secure. To menu, you have some base programs that you use with all your lifters. Whenever you have a cohort that comes in at the start of the season, you have the third take 2-3 weeks. They upgrade in a certain progressive way in some kind of linear periodization type model. And what I do is assumption 1 that most of my athletes are going to be healthy when they come back. 2, that they've maintained some minimal level of activity, been practicing some of them. And then what I do is I take one of consecutive base programs and put that into a 4-week program. So basically they start days a week and they 4 days a week. Most of my competitors days a week. These programs work from full lifts. They work from they obviously do a high volume initially. Initially we don't do percentage loads. We overall the assumption is at the end of 4 weeks they should be within 5% of previous PRs at the rep that they're training with. So here's an example of a very simple Olympic weightlift program where you're working a lot of technique, a lot of controlled tempos, partial lifts, a lot of snatching from the hip, reinforcing the overhead squat again, slow pulls to reinforce positions there. And then, one of the days you're trying to teach them a little bit more by getting them into 3-position snatches and cleans. But you see the squat loads, 8s, an 8 out of 10 controlled tempos for most cases, just very general program. Now you'll see as I go into week 2. So generally, this is my beginner program. Just for 3 weeks, moderate progression and load and a slight decreased volume. And the week 2 will be actually the first week of program 2. So now I'm moving from overhead squats into snatch escapes instead of power from the hip. They're going to now do full snatch from. And then you'll see the squats, or you're going to load a little bit more down to 6s and maintain that RP around 8. And then as we go by week 2, I should have an idea if they're in shape or out of shape, if they've forgotten how to do that. If everything's good, they can now move on to week 3. Now week 3, you can start adding in percentage loads again. So you may have to top off about 5% off the PB charts. Hopefully not more than that, but you can get them back to percentage load. And if your athletes have been doing some of the right things, this should come back pretty quick. The biggest limitation you'll find is the strength endurance. It's those, it's not the power cleans at 70% for 5. That's really going to hurt them, although they will be out of breath. It'll be those at 80% for sets of 6 that'll beat them up, or even some of the 8 rep stuff at 70-75%. They'll get a little crampy from that. But now you can start at least giving them percents, and now you're going to see are hitting their percentages. So that's a question I asked you guys early on in the chat was, are you getting any testing? I won't have time to test. We got to right into it. So I'll test while training. And this is kind of where we'll evaluate who's in trouble, who's not, and who's doing well. And then this easily works up to week 4, where week 4 is just more complex. Now we're going into mock work, some partial work, some full work. So it's just more complex training. But you see now we're back squats, 3 sets of 6 plus a 70 on top. 3 sets of 6 at 80% plus a 70 up. And then in this program, they work like 4 sets of 85 on squats, that kind of thing, right? So at the end of this goal, you should be able to get an idea of at the squat, front squat, back squat, clean, snatch, are they on track? Are they within 5% of where they should be? And then can they do a competition cycle? I don't know what their competition season will be, when it will start, but I'm assuming it'll be the end of August. There's a bunch of they're trying to qualify for provincials, and that last chance for that was September. So some of these people are going to have to dive right into it. But Olympic lifting, but this model I think can work really well for a lot of you, and no matter what setting you're in, where you some of those basic programs and just start putting together. What I describe it as, it's like a comfy T-shirt when they come back. They've seen this before. It's not new. They know what to expect. It's comfortable. It's that old T-shirt you always wear. All right, good. We're going to go back to some of the basics and let's see where I'm at. And then that will look a year ago and say, yeah, I did something similar. Okay, I'm on track. And it'll help them build up their confidence as well and realize that they aren't too far off. As opposed to if all of a sudden you say, all right, guys, we missed a whole bunch of training time. We're gonna do something wild and crazy to try and get you back, where the panic just continues and the lack of security will just continue. And so my high school, though, I've got a little bit different deal now. I only have about a dozen high school students. Most of them are pretty top level players in the region. But we have 2 different scenarios. One is also, let's say we get back June 1st. They're talking about maybe a 2-week and then go right into a shortened season. So instead of an 8-game season, it'll be a 5-game season. So in that case, it'll be very different than the other scenario where they cancel all summer football and boom, we're done. So in the, let's go back to playing right away. Most of my guys have forgotten power. That's my biggest concern. There'll be strength endurance will be gone. Power endurance will be down. Overall conditioning, if they've done some of their home workouts, may not be too far off, but football conditioning won't be there. So I'll plop them right into a 2-week undulating program, 1 heavy strength day, 1 heavy power day, and 1 power endurance day. And then 3 days on the field, 1 speed focus, 1 agility focus, 1 complex. And it'll be like an in-season model, like training camp model, compared to scenario 2, which is easy. Basically, you just go back to your rebuild. So you're going to work on all aspects, go into a more linear model and work up to the traditional peak. Anyway, I don't want to take up too much more time, but I just thought I'd throw that out there and see if it rings any bells for any of you. Hold on, I'm just expanding my screen here.
Similar?
I'm just curious. Thanks for that, Trev. That was great. I'm just curious if anyone's thinking like a wholesale periodization change. Like, is anyone thinking about going from because we're I know Joe, maybe you can speak to this because you've been sort of working on all those scenarios, working backwards. So I don't know what model you guys usually use, but is anyone, going to transition from a linear model to a more sort of concurrent model or something different? Is anyone considering making wholesale changes?
I'm going to hold off I'm still kind of waiting another week or two to make any major decisions, but I think given the light, the most sensible thing for us is going to be keeping pretty linear in our progressions. And what I'm hoping is the jump volume that we're throwing in. I know Sam talked about 300 to 400 jumps. We're doing some, we're building into some pretty heavy plyo circuits of like 10 by 10 type of thing every minute on the minute. And their conditioning will be similar, like 8 seconds, hard as you can, every minute on the minute kind of thing, building up. So at least they're inoculated there. From the strength piece, I'm pretty happy where our kids are. We just finished our max kind of strength phase and tested right before this all hit. So unfortunately, we're going to lose a lot of that. So I think it's just going to be rebuild, and I think we're all in the same boat with this. So I'm not really stressing too much about it right now because I think we're just going to be playing triage once we come back to it. Like there's nothing that's a good scenario coming out of this. I think commercial gyms will be one of the last things to get open again too. So we're going to have to be innovative in how we're going to load. And the unfortunate thing is some kids, like the kids who are in Alberta and stuff, they grew up with a squat rack in their garage. They're going to be better suited than the guys who are still living on campus and have a dorm room that's 350 square feet. And so we're just going to have to play it by ear as it comes.
That's a big dorm room, man.
Yeah. $1,800 a month, Jordan.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it comes with it. So next, the portion we want to talk about, I think there's a few people on the line, is just kind of mature athletes, either adult athletes in individual sport or occupational athletes where you might be using a little bit more of a consultative approach instead of a structured team approach. I'll share a little bit about what we believe our approach is going to be. I just got an email while we're on the line here. It looks like we are still months away from being in a structured environment with our clients. That being said, they have to be ready all the time. That's the idea. And they range in age from, 20 plus, let's say that. And some of them have been doing a tough physical job for 10 plus years. With a haphazard calendar. So it's kind of a shit show at the best of times. The approach that we're going to take with the people that we can when we get back is go with kind of a rehab plan forward or forward design approach for a week or two while we tread water to see where they're at. And then go with an abbreviated backwards design approach where we establish some sort of a point B for them and do a bridge training phase there. So 1 to 2 weeks of a very conservative plan forward, linear design, linear progression of elements, and making sure that for our population anyways, because they tend to be pretty stupid in the gym, that they're eased back into that, especially with respect to load and any of those barbell movements that they might not have been doing for weeks and months. We don't have a really sharp increase in those structural demands. And then we take that bridge phase that's going to be 3 to 4 weeks to return them to proper training. The goal for that point B for them from a physical standpoint would be to get back into what would resume regular training, but early in the training year is best that I can kind of verbalize it. Anybody else out there want to share some ideas or as a consultative approach that they might take with individual senior athletes where they're not necessarily planning and controlling all of the training that they're doing? Or thoughts or questions on what I presented?
Yeah, I mean, so I have athletes that I'm training through Canada Basketball and just trying to stay in touch with them with their approach. Once we get them back, so with Canada Basketball, we have the National Training Center, where we bring our male athletes into. So they'll be taking care of the rehab, strength and conditioning, and that'll just kind of be what you were saying of starting them with that rehab phase, making sure their bodies are right. For athletes that I have on my professional team, or ones that I have more of a relationship with, it's been kind of helping them build their own programs, and just kind of they come up with something and then just questioning them through it. That's what I've been doing. A couple of my like older athletes, because they have like Instagram followers and stuff, like they've tried to become like social media influencers and posting their workouts. So as they're posting those, just back and forth conversation, making sure they're not doing anything that's going to set them behind. That's kind of been the biggest thing. But that social media aspect with at least, I would say 4 of the guys on my team, was how I was able to initiate the conversation of, okay, so what are you doing? Yeah.
To piggyback on something that Max said in the comments, Max James, I just wanted to highlight it. I think it's like way up there now, but again, talking about empowering and education through this, one of the things that we've done for, what's it called? I guess the command that we work with. So bigger than the people that we work with actually directly, is that education piece, and taking this as an opportunity to create that legacy content. So it shows value in the future, but then also empowers them to make some decisions right now in the time. I would like to think that if I were in a different environment, that I would do similar and be okay with people just doing their thing right now if they feel like they can. Because honestly, if we ever asked our athletes or clients to think about it, those of you out there that I know that are doing the job, your athletes know what to do. If they actually have to think about it. If they've decided for whatever reason, and some good reasons, to just come in and do what they're told for 4 years straight, sure. But in that moment where they're just actually asked and challenged to think about it a few times, you'd be really surprised what they come up with. And one of the things that I saw often, which was like almost frustratingly funny when I was at University of Guelph working with football, was we would have discretionary periods, or whatever you want to call them, where we wouldn't prescribe training. And half the guys that would be bitching about the monotony of the training the rest of the time, they'd come in and they'd be able to choose exactly what it is that they could do, and they would end up just doing workouts that so some of that is just how they make their decisions. They pick a compound exercise and then heavier at the start and move down in volume, and less complexity as the workout goes on, or maybe it's just copying. But that's certainly something that we've been putting time into now, that we hope also helps us with that return to training piece, because that's going to be, we have a 4 lecture series that we're presenting, and the 4th one going to be like 5 weeks from now or something like that, 6 weeks from now, which we're hoping is near the end of this, is one on load versus capacity and how to build up resilience.
I think that's a good point, Jordan. I call it infinite regression, where like we've given everything to these kids for like they're spoon fed. And I see in the comment section talking about alumni, and like our job isn't necessarily to make them better human beings and figure this out for their own when they move on to life and sport is done. But that's what happens, or should happen, in my opinion, if you're doing things well. And the more shit that we give them, the worse off they become. The more tricks and tools and videos and everything we do, I'm finding that it's getting harder and harder for the kids to figure things out on their own. And we're kind of deviate away from our basic motor learning principles. And this is, if anything comes out of this, what I'm hoping is they spend time with their family and they start actually figuring shit out on their own. Like, they need to be creative in what they're doing. We give them a program, and you guys have seen the Instagram posts of guys squatting tires and shit like that. At least those kids are engaged enough to try something different and creative enough to try something different. And that's something we always try to instill in our athletes. Like, you have to figure this out on your own, and we're here to guide you where we can, but I'm not holding your hand through the process. And we have to be really conscious about that. And I'm really conscious about not having phones in the gym, as an example. Like, we don't use an online platform because we could have 70 kids in the gym at a time. So aside from phones getting broken, stolen, and everything else, we don't need any more distractions when some teams we only see twice a week. So we try really hard to make sure that they're paying attention to what they're doing. They're writing things in so they're a little more engaged than just dictating stuff in. Just like when they're in class, like I was supposed to start teaching a class in May, and we ended up canceling it. But one of my things was no laptops in the classroom. And it wasn't to be a dick. It's that they're just going to dictate what I say. They're writing down what I say instead of actually having to articulate what's going on. And I think we have to, as coaches, be really conscious of that during these types of times, that they got to do some of these things and actually learn how to adapt and find ways to make things work given the constraints that are thrown their way.
And it's certainly another time that allows us to highlight the value of autonomy and intent. And I have it I always write stuff on whiteboards in my offices. I have everywhere that some people on here have seen the garbage that I put on there. And I was actually criticizing kind of the Franz Bosch resurgence, I guess, of the last few years. And I was talking about it. If complexity interferes with intent and purpose, then what's the point of it being complex? And I think sometimes that we fall into that and presenting that, because compared to other coaches, compared to sport coaches or anyone else, like the sports information officer in your department, what we can probably do that they can't do or that they don't do often, it is the X's and O's. It is the periodization. But sometimes we hide too much behind that and the value, because really I think back to my time as an athlete. I didn't really know what I was doing. Strength and conditioning wasn't much of a thing. And at one point I was probably like, yeah, how much better would I have been if I did it? I don't think I would have been better at all. No offense to anybody on here. But I just think that our kids or our clients, adults, whatever they are, I don't think they're kind of as dumb and as helpless as they act sometimes. So if this goes on for longer, some of them might figure it out and they might come back. We are about to clue up here. And just because I was going to say that guy, but it's kind of an asshole, I'm going to call out a comment in the chat. And I'm going to quote a guy so that it doesn't seem like I'm such an ass about it. But Matt Pritchard said, I feel like compliance shouldn't be an issue once we all return. Mentally, it could be a case of missing it, as in you don't know what you've got until it's gone. So that might be true. And I watched a video, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago, potentially, by a guy named Joe Ken. He's a strength coach. He just got fired, actually. So he's an unemployed strength coach in the U.S., but he worked at Arizona State, Utah, Boise State.
He was my strength coach.
Carolina Panthers. Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Were you at Utah at the time?
At Utah.
Yeah.
Utah.
So I think he's a lovable and hateable guy from what I gather. And he's very American, let's say that.
Yeah.
But he made a really good point. I think he makes a lot of good points, whether he's a dipshit or not, to be fair. All of us that are strength coaches value strength and conditioning. And most of us were probably under-talented, over-successful athletes. Say that again, under-talented, over-successful. We use preparation to be better athletes, and we think it's important. And it's our job, and we put our life into it, and probably done a bad job at other things as a result. So, of course, we think strength and conditioning is important. And hopefully you can see my hand. So right here, this is an arbitrary level of something. Like a lot of athletes, put it up higher because I got to come down from there. Most of the athletes you work with like playing the games. Not even all of them like playing the games. Some of them just do it because they do it. Less than that like to practice, and even less than that like to train. So one of the assumptions that we always need to go on is we're believers in this. This is what we do. But we also need to think about what's most important to them in totality of it all. And if we take that approach with everyone, like, aren't you happy to be back? I'm sure that I'm going to have a guy that's going to F off. Like, no, I'm not happy to be back. I was fine doing my own thing. And now there's people looking at me. So, and I know that Matt knows that, but most of us will miss it. And I'm sure there will be a lot of people just hungry for the weights, especially they get back, because that's mostly what people are missing. Did anybody else have anything to add as we're cluing this up? People feel free, obviously not that you need a permission prior to this to take off, but if anybody else had anything to share or just wanted to chat, We'll keep it on here until 2:15. Is that cool with you, Sam? You're the moderator.
I just want to hear Steve Lidstone's voice one time because it's a very calming influence for me before I go.
I love you, Josh.
Oh,
Can you just put the microphone, Steve, to whatever your kid's class thing, like the gong show that is right now, kindergarten class, whatever you said it was?
Yeah, that was happening earlier. Yeah, we had our kids on, our youngest, the 5-year-old, on kind of like a call just like this, but just for all the kindergarten kids. So it was a gong show for sure.
I feel like that in a weird way would be like when we're all teaching our parents how to use the iPhone, like the video chat or whatever. And it's just, is this on? Is this on? Just.
Thanks, guys. I got to get to my next meeting. I just threw my email and cell in the chat if anyone wants to reach out or talk shop in the upcoming weeks.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Jordan, I'll toss in a little different perspective here.
Could have called on you, yeah, man, but go for it.
So one of my main teams is Freestyle Ski Canada. Now, obviously, we can't ski year round and there's not snow year round. We do try our best to chase snow, but we'll basically do a 2 to 3 week camp on snow and then we'll be off snow for a month at a time. So we're always in a state of not being able to do our sport. And so the way we kind of get around that, for lack of a better term, I'll use Derek Hansen's approach, is microdosing. Every single day I try to microdose high impact landings, rebounding, high force, whether that's isometrics or heavy load stuff. So that's kind of been our strategy that seems to work well. So they're always getting a high impact stimulus so that it's never out of what they do. And so I just put it so they're used to doing little bits of plyos every single day to keep the foot contacts, if you want to call it that, up. And that's worked well for us. So we're basically just extending that out because we won't be on snow anytime soon. And for us, I'm actually enjoying this because we actually get a full off season for a change. Yeah, just a thought.
Thanks, buddy. I thought you were working on something else because you didn't jump in there earlier. But yeah, one of the things that I loved about what Chaps just said there is it wasn't really all that specific. And he probably gives, I'm going to speak for him maybe, but he probably gives them options. Like, hey, choose one of these options. Like, do a high force option, do a high reactive strength option, whatever terminology it is that you use. And most often they end up settling back to what you would want them to do anyways, because they value your input, especially with athletes that have a choice whether they work with you or not. But that's kind of what it's all about. You've a little bit in each of those buckets along the way, and they're never really too far from where they need to be. Ian, I got a question for you.
Can you hear me?
I was thinking about, yeah, I can. I was, you're like super technological today, and you got that wicked background. Is that like a wallpaper, or is that actually a legit office? This guy's prep for it all the time. If you were working with, I haven't reached out to my buddy yet that I know the best that I worked with in track and field, but my prediction is they're not concerned. If you're working with track athletes right now, would you be talking us off the ledge about being concerned with this?
That's a tough one because it depends who you're dealing with, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, what I'm saying is that, like, there are plenty of, everyone's seen the videos or heard the anecdotes. Some of the fastest people, most explosive of all time, if we're looking at the sprints and the jumps, never touched anything heavier than an 8-pound med ball in a shitty old field in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
So is this all for naught?
See, that's the problem, again, depending on the coach, right? I think Joe said it best. If you can deal with a coach that believes in what you do, then it's different. If the coach really doesn't subscribe to that, then you're kind of hands off and just leave it there, because really the issue will come down to, can you keep the individual healthy? And if something happens, you're going to get blamed. So it's, you know what I'm talking about. So it's, yeah, it's a very interesting subject, because I like the lifting side, and others like just run yourself into condition and you'll be okay. But then a tendency for me is to see people who can't necessarily handle a load, they're going to get hurt faster than the guys who can handle a load. So I don't know, man, catch 22, depending on the body you have in front of you.
Yeah, for sure. I think it'll be really interesting 6 to 9 to 12 months from now when hopefully this is all done and we're all back and we were all wrong, to see all the different ways that we can present how we were all wrong. Because we're all going to get blamed a little bit, right? Like, it's because they ran too much. They ran too little. When we did the return, you lifted too much combat. We managed the load. We didn't manage the load. Like, we're all going to end up being wrong here.
Well, see, that was the interesting thing. I was wondering if the IOC was going to say, like, yeah, no, we're going to continue, because I wanted to see how athletes who couldn't train up here, you know, everything's shut down. You can't even go out in the grass, how they were going to adapt or perform. But I knew at some point, you know, they'd have to say, like, yeah, let's cut this thing out, because it's just too dangerous. Too many, the largest body of, or a large collection of countries under one roof. Yeah, it's not a good thing. So we shall see.
If we all get back from this and we actually see injury rates decrease and everybody's setting PBs and speed and preseason testing, does that mean we're all unemployed after this?
Just like the way strength coaches are scapegoats, take all the credit for it, man.
Give me a second here. I just want to scan to see who. Yeah, so my organization has asked us to kind of track what we're doing a little bit, and the position that I'm in is fairly new. I'm just thinking there's like 8 of them in the country or something like that, and they develop from fitness instructors. So essentially, fitness instructors doing group or like large group training that's not individualized, so that clients are fit enough to pass a fitness test. And the fitness test is not difficult. In order to get like 100% on the fitness test, it's difficult, but probably 95% of the athletes, or more than that every one of you guys work with, would get 100%. Like, so it's not at any time of the year without ever practicing the test. So take that for what it's worth. So they don't quite know what to do with us during this time, because they just see it as transactions. Right? A lot of it is, you know, how many programs are you writing? How many Zoom coaching sessions are you doing? All this kind of BS, when really they need to be looking for the transformational pieces that are helping you develop as a person, you develop as a professional, and then how you're going to help the place that you're returning to, you know, in the short, medium, and long term, and how you're contributing your field overall. And unfortunately, like, if we go back to the days of, it's not that far, 2014, but the calculator, that initial calculator that came up with that OUA thing, Steve, where you enter the number of athletes and the number of athletes per group and the amount of hours and all that kind of thing. If we're still calculating there and showing our value in that way, yeah, we're in trouble. And unfortunately, probably a month from now, some of the people that we've been talking to that are in our circles are going to be out of a job. That's why we need to be trying to highlight those things that we're doing that are bigger and better and have that broad transformational impact. You know what, Zumba. So like, I think there is actually somebody in my greater organization that is doing like video Zumba. And a lot of you on here know me pretty well, but for the job that we ask the population that we work with, like the job that they have to do, if they need to call in to someone, checking again to see, like, do exercise, like if they need that, they're screwed. It's but that's what some people think that it is that we do, right? Babysit people while they do burpees or whatever exercises that they think that we do. Yeah. Anybody else have anything cool to share that they're working on, taking up their time? I'm putting it out there. I'm telling as many people as I can now, because it's like partly a joke. I've been working on my master's so long now, and I emailed my professor today and I said, man, it's going to take like tens of thousands of people dead in a pandemic for that to get done, but it's happening. So taking this time to try to pound through that for myself. And a couple of people out there laughing. They're like, yeah, man, I wish I had that time to do mine, but it's going to happen now. Anybody else taking advantage, or is this like really sweet for anybody right now?
Kind of hitting on what you mentioned before about sort of a mix of the Zumba stuff. I think someone else talked about expanding their programming to some like the Queen staff and everything else. We've already kind of developed a partnership with our rec department. So Adrian Lightower, the manager at U of T, is now not just managing the SNC, but all of the rec stuff. So personal trainers and everything else. So to kind of sell our position a little bit more during this time, we've been really trying to push the rec side of things. And we're trying to do a good job of balancing, the fact that we are trying to deliver more sophisticated programming instead of some kind of general watch you do your lift while I'm here and call myself a coach type lifting. So some of our younger programs, and we've got smaller partnerships with like golf and some other smaller teams, we just kind of copy that program over. And ones that are more complex, we just say like, hey, this is a program we give our first year football players. Maybe we should give that a try. So trying to find a structure where we can kind of expand that to other people, again, to kind of show our worth during this time without conflicting with kind of our core values is a key thing. So hopefully other people are trying to expand in an appropriate way, because I know we're kind of struggling of also maintaining our core values while still doing that. So it's good to hear that Queens is doing something similar.
Yeah, if I can chime in here too. One thing that we're doing, we're trying to provide as much programming as we can for our staff within our department. And like Nikki this morning did a full yoga class with all of our staff members, which is really, really good as a way to try and kind of like add value from the staff that we have. I did an Instagram question and answer live last night as a way to just try and again, kind of like you talked about, empower education. I think that's probably the best thing that all of us are educators in one way or another. So I thought that would be a good way to try and reach as many people as possible through that, just try and get as much education out there as we could. But yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, it's how do we show value when we're not with them, right? And how do we make it so that they're doing a little better all the time through the things that we help them with or provide them with, instead of a little worse. And if it's always a little better, then over time, it'll be pretty great.
I think, Jordan, last week you were talking about how much content there is on online. So what I've been doing, quick backstory here. My team actually wanted me to come back when the numbers were going down in Asia. I said no, so I actually quit my team. So I'll be looking for work when we get out of this. So what I've been doing, I've been watching content, and when I find genuine questions I have, people are super open, they have downtime. So I've been reaching out to whatever college coaches, MBA, different levels. And the responses have been way higher than I've had before. So I think that'd be good for anybody to do, whether it's answering general questions you have or building your network. Now is a really good time where people are available for it.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I had reached out to Jordan, and I'd already met with Trevor earlier. John and I from MAC had already talked. So I'm glad we kind of got to get together to do this, because this is an awesome opportunity. I thought I might have been one of the few people who was actually still reaching out to talk to people, but our program is really closely knit with our biomechanics program. So I just reached out to some of the professors, and some of them are obviously super busy, but I think you're absolutely right, man. Just connecting with some people while you can now, and really jumping at this opportunity. It's been really good to that extent.
As you're not taking the Chinese government up on unsafe work or whatever, man. You can't say that's a labor board dispute. You didn't want to return to unsafe work, or China doesn't care about that.
No. So what they did, Cambodia and China are connected with each other. So they were trying to have us come back to Cambodia because they could get the Chinese athletes into Cambodia. And Cambodia only has one case. And then the next level that they want to go for this is because our league is 10 different teams in 9 different countries, and they want all 10 teams to move to Cambodia. Cambodia does not have the infrastructure for their own professional basketball team. They wanted all 10 teams living in Cambodia.
At least, yeah, our shit show is not that bad, eh?
Yeah, and they just like, they thought that they were through it. And I mean, the numbers are coming back up in China. Like they're putting back in lockdowns and shutdowns and not letting media in when they were a couple weeks ago. So the numbers are increasing. So our head coach, I quit. Our head coach didn't quit. He went back, and then 5 days later they sent him home. So he's in quarantine now in Toronto, but he got paid out for the full year. So you win some, you lose some.
Yeah. Yeah, you win some, you lose some, or you potentially go to China and die there. Cool. I guess we're gonna shut it for there. We got some ideas in the chat there. We'll probably aim to do another one next week or the week after. I'm not sure if we're gonna keep up this tempo. Someone trying to speak.
I got one more question for you guys.
Yeah.
Maybe this is like in the college setting. Are you guys being given guidelines? Like it sounds like you guys are being given guidelines or dates of return. Or are there resources you guys are using to try to figure out when you're going to be coming back to normalcy?
I'm not college at the moment. We've been given dates that just keep getting pushed. So they said the next date for us to consider in my setting is April 30th, to be determined later. So I expect in a week or two that'll be pushed to something else.
Yep. Okay.
I don't know what everyone else is getting.
Yeah, I can add to that. We in our management meetings are getting anywhere from June 1st to July 1st right now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're the same. We're essentially pending at home for the foreseeable future, and earliest July 1st, earliest.
And then I'm just like a regular under smart guy type thing, but I would imagine that then it's going to be a graded return. And depending on who's at the table, I don't know how much of a priority gathering a bunch of people sweating and breathing all over each other to play something that's for fun is going to be. So I know it's really important to all of us, and it's really important in the lives of the athletes that we work with. And we think that it's a big part of who they become and so on and so forth. But I wouldn't be surprised where I work if we're one of the last things that's opened up, because frankly, they'll just say, hey, go outside and go for a run.
Yeah.
Instead of gathering people. So it'll be interesting to see. And then who is, kind of similarly to the Tokyo announcement, who is one of the first that takes a stand and says, we're going back to athletics in the collegiate setting? Is U Sports or the OUA going to have any part in that? Or are they just going to say, hey, you guys do what you want based on your own risk management? Or, public gyms, community centers, all that. Who's going to be one of the first to take the jump and see how it goes?
Well, I'll hop in here too. Steve, you might have more insight on this because you get more contact with the higher ups, let's say, but and you're significantly more important than me. But with that being said, we just found out today that the OUA's pretty much halted all their scheduling as well, right? So like a couple of our schedules were done, and now they're potentially going to be amended. So I wouldn't be surprised if basketballs and volleyballs don't start to the second semester. And they're basically, everything's up in the air. So they basically halted all scheduling. So all the schedules that were done now could potentially be amended. Plus, going forward, they're not releasing any new schedules until things kind of clear up. But that's what we got from it in our meeting today. But I don't know if anybody's heard any more.
No, that's correct. They're holding off on putting out any other schedules, OUA schedules, U Sport schedules, until there's a clear picture of when we're getting back. I still think that we're going to have seasons this fall. I really do. I just think it's a matter of time right now.
Yeah, kind of back to what Joe said, like there's an optimal way. Maybe we've all figured that out or some version of it. But if we find out in mid-June or early July, mid-July, that everyone's starting back in a month, it's kind of like it was back when we all played anyways. Okay, over and out. I guess Sam, going to put it on her to shut this thing down. She's the host, and she'll send out another email about the topic and the date of our next one. Thanks, everybody. Always great to see you guys and hear about what you're doing so I can steal it and use it myself.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe. That's all I got. I'm trying to figure out how to copy the chat and keep the chat. Do you know how to do that, Joe?
I thought it came with recording. It doesn't come, eh?
Not in some of the ones that we've been saving, but I can't copy and paste. It just pastes the Zoom URL, but maybe
No,
I'll see. I might have to change things in my settings, but anyways,
at that. Anyway,
I
that
gotta
went
hop off
okay.
this and hop on a new one.
Shit, I've been on this for 5 hours now.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
All right.
All right, bud. Thanks for all the touch.